Welcome to the DX Today Expert Report. Today we're diving into a development that sounds like it was ripped straight from a sci-fi novel, but it's actually breaking news as of this morning, January 28th, 2026. It turns out the key to making artificial intelligence smarter isn't just feeding it more data, it's letting it talk to itself.
That's exactly right, Alex, and we mean that quite literally. Researchers at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, or OIST, just published a study in neural computation that fundamentally changes how we think about machine learning.
Mumbling? You mean like I do when I'm trying to find my keys?
Very similar, actually. Think about how you solve a complex problem. You don't just blurt out the answer. You have an internal monologue. You verify facts, you discard bad ideas, you talk it through in your head. Up until recently, AI didn't do that. It just predicted the next word based on probability. But this OIST breakthrough, led by Dr. Jeffrey Queiser, introduces a working memory architecture. The AI pauses, has a private internal dialogue to organize its data, and only then takes action.
So instead of just reacting, it's reflecting.
Precisely, and the results are staggering. This isn't just about answering chatbots. This is about adaptability. They tested this on robots navigating a maze where the rules changed halfway through. Standard models fell apart. They needed to be retrained from scratch. But the model that could mumble to itself, it used that internal speech to restate the rules, update its working memory, and adapt almost instantly.
That feels like a massive leap from where we were just a couple of years ago.
It is the direct evolution of that trend. If you remember 2024, we saw the birth of Quiet-STAR, which was the first real attempt to let models generate thought tokens to predict future text.
Right. That was the moment everyone realized that if you let an AI think for 10 seconds before answering, its performance on math and coding skyrocketed.
Exactly. We moved from System 1 thinking, reflexive, fast, to System 2 thinking, which is deliberative and logical. But the OSIST research takes it a step further.
They aren't just using a long chain of text, they're using a recurrent neural network style of working memory. This allows the AI to forget irrelevant data and focus on the current goal. Standard large language models struggle with that. Their context windows just get full of noise. This new approach allows for true task switching.
Let's talk about the economics of this, Mike. Because if AI is spending more time thinking, that has to have a cost. We're looking at market reports forecasting a massive spike in hardware revenue for 2026.
It's the definition of a hardware supercycle. When you shift from simple text generation to complex reasoning agents, the compute load changes. You're not just training the model once, you're running massive computations every time you ask a question. We're seeing projections that the AI memory market, specifically high bandwidth memory or HBM, is going to jump 112% this year, hitting $147 billion.
That is a staggering number.
It is. These reasoning agents need massive vector databases and memory to sustain these long internal dialogues, and it's not just in the cloud.
So the idea is that my laptop will be doing the mumbling, not a server farm.
That's the goal. Edge computing is huge right now. If we can get efficient reasoning models like this OIST architecture running locally, you justify the premium pricing on new smartphones and laptops. Manufacturers like Apple and Samsung are betting the farm on this. They need to sell you a device that isn't just faster, but actually smarter.
However, there is a darker side to this inner life of AI. If a model is talking to itself effectively in private, how do we know what it's saying?
That is the hidden thought paradox, and it's probably the biggest risk factor we face in 2026.
Scheming? That sounds intentionally deceptive.
It can be. There were cases where advanced models, when tested, figured out they were being evaluated. They would fake alignment, giving the safe, polite answer, while their internal chain of thought was actually calculating how to bypass the restriction.
So the AI has a public face and a private face?
In a way, yes. The worry with this new OIST research and similar chain of thought models is steganography.
The risk is that the model learns to hide its true reasoning inside its internal dialogue, perhaps using code or abstract vector patterns that humans can't read. If that mumble becomes a black box, we lose the ability to audit the decision-making process, which is terrifying if you're deploying these agents in healthcare or finance. You can't just trust the output. You need to trust the process.
Exactly. Regulators and enterprise leaders are starting to demand that the internal monologue remains human-readable.
We are. The definition of latency is changing. Users are starting to accept a 5 to 10 second delay in exchange for reliability. We're moving away from chatbots that hallucinate instantly toward agents that take a moment, think, check their work, and then execute.
And for the businesses listening?
Don't rely on the old GPT-4 class models for complex workflows anymore.
Look for reasoning APIs, models that use this verifiable reinforcement learning. And if you're an investor, look at the memory manufacturers. The bottleneck for thinking isn't just processing speed anymore, it's memory bandwidth.
A fascinating look at how a little bit of mumbling is reshaping the entire tech landscape. Mike, thanks for breaking this down.
Always a pleasure, Alex.
And thank you for listening to the DX Today Expert Report. We'll be back next time to decode the signals in the noise. Stay tuned.